Scan-out, ba-dow, ba-da-dow, scan-it-a-bow, ba-da-dow. It's Bond time again, gang. At the beginning of December, we are bridging Twilight and Christmas with James Lamont Bond, one of my favorite super spies in the MI6.
Oh, one of the favorite spies in the MI6.
One of the top ones.
Who's the other one? 004 in the beginning of Living Daylights, who gets killed?
No, he gets killed, obviously. I can't like him. He sucks his job. You know? But there's other ones out there. Jinx, yeah. She's one of my favorites.
She's MI6 or CIA?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
All right, Let's get into it. This is me, Double O D-Train, Daniel Ehrenberg, and Henry Papali's over there, one of my good friends in New Jersey.
Yeah, hi. He stole my my moniker, but that's okay.
What were you going to be, Double O H-Train? H-Bomb or whatever?
Double O Hank, yeah.
Sure.
It's all right. You have a license to Hank this weekend, great. And it's that was a great recovery.
Oh my God, he is! I'm watching you disintegrating before my eyes.
I was looking, and it's always great to return to Jimmy Bond, and it's been a while. It's been over a year, almost a year and a half. August 2020 was when we finished up with Roger Moore.
Yeah, and the films had gotten so boring that we needed an 18-month break.
Yeah, they were getting rough there, even though I still liked some of them.
I did too, but
yeah.
I realized something watching these two. I now have a least favorite James Bond director.
Oh, okay.
Mr. John Glenn, sir. We have now covered him extensively. He got his start, of course, as an editor for the James Bond films, and then he was recruited to direct, starting with For Your Eyes Only. And, I mean, to me, you hire your editor to direct as an avatar for the producer, right? That is so the producer now doesn't have to put any creative decisions through the director. They can now choose everything. It's what Kevin Feige has now done with the Marvel Universe. You hire your editor because he will say yes to everything you ask of him, okay?
And I think that also, to your point, is also very true when it's a franchise.
Of course.
Yeah, that's how this can be pulled off with ease.
Absolutely.
However, I don't think he's the weakest Bond director.
He's the worst Bond director. He has no dynamism to him. The scenes just lie there. His blocking is boring. Everything is just slow. They're all a half hour too long. I mean, I'm looking at this list here. He did For Your Eyes Only, Octopussy, View to a Kill for Roger Moore, okay?
Right.
Those are some slow movies. Like, none of them are even that bad. They're just slow. And then he does both of the Timothy Dalton movies. Mm-hmm. And I gotta say, this Living Daylights, we're covering Living Daylights and License to Kill today, the two Timothy Dalton James Bond movies. And the Living Daylights is the most boring James Bond movie ever made.
That's insane.
It is. It's worse than Thunderball.
Which is, of course, regarded as like one of the best.
Which I consider the worst James Bond movie. The most boring, anyway. The most boring James Bond movie ever. And because, I mean, Die Another Day is probably worse, but less boring.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, it's okay, because, it's weird, because I think that sometimes in the Bond movies, and let's not count Daniel Craig's yet, because we haven't covered them, and it's just a different era, but up until now, we've done Connery, Lazenby, Moore, and now Dalton, and, some of the movies, good and bad ones, still have, like, certain things that make the action palatable, make conversations between characters. Like you don't expect to see an auteur really behind this stuff, but there's definite. I
just want them to be fun.
There's a lot of truth to what Dan's saying. I noticed for the first time John Glenn myself, I actually did notice
he's holding things up. I want to pat him on the ass and get into gear.
Some very, very, very workmanlike stuff in these movies that I don't think necessarily needed to be. There are plenty in both these movies, in my opinion, because I like them both, but suspenseful scenes that are by his direction, just angled broadly. There's no real quick cuts. There are these very blocky, kind of pausing shots that are very strange, and I think sometimes he knows how to do. And I think at the end of License to Kill, he directs the truck sequence very well.
Yeah, but why am I watching it? What am I watching? Convoy?
Well, it's we'll
fucking
get into
Hooper with Burt Reynolds.
I think there's and probably some of the things that weren't directed by him, in my personal opinion, were probably directed by the second AD, like some of the, in my opinion, great aerial stunts. I don't even think he was doing those. I mean, I think that, so I don't know. He's a tad boring. I agree. The Living Day, I don't think License to Kill suffers as much from this as Living Daylights does.
License to Kill has at least a compelling storyline, has a motivation for James Bond, something to follow, and it has Timothy Dalton, who I genuinely think elevates both of these movies.
No secret that I've talked him up a little bit during our 5-year run here. I've always, since I was a kid, I have always thought he got fucking overlooked, and I've kind
because of the movies, Henry. I realize that now. I never realized that before this time. Okay, Timothy Dalton is only a joke because of these two boring fucking movies.
But you like him? You've at least reassessed him.
I've always liked Timothy Dalton.
Yeah, no, you've never talked shit on him, but I mean, you get why I think he's kind of a precursor to the... He's
a solid Bond. He's obviously a precursor to the Daniel Craig thing. The world wasn't ready for Daniel Craig Bond in 1987, but that's definitely what he's trying to do. And he's doing a pretty good job of it. He just happens to find himself in two bad movies. One very bad movie.
Well, I don't think either are bad movies. I like them both, but I just think he seems to be. It's funny. He seems to not be on the same page as the director.
No way.
Right.
Or the Broccolis, for that matter.
Well, that's the weird thing, and we'll talk about it because the Broccolis seem to want to go in that darker.
Yeah, but they don't want to commit to it. They're interested in it, clearly, because they would later do it with Daniel Craig. But
they're kind of tiptoeing around it.
They're flirting with it. I read on the Wikipedia page that the fucking Living Daylights was originally sketched out as being like an origin story, like Casino Royale, like this is the first adventure we're seeing of James Bond, and then they backed off on that. It should have been that might have worked, but if you're gonna do that, you cannot hire John Glenn to direct. You are not allowed.
Yeah, the carryover of Bond directors was done a lot. I think we did. Who do we get? We got
it's still done, and it shouldn't be. Sam Mendes shouldn't have directed the most recent one. He didn't. Fukunaga did. But I don't understand why. I still don't understand why Martin Campbell directed Casino Royale after directing GoldenEye. I do not get that.
I'm glad he did. I mean, I don't get it either. It's very strange, but I'm glad that he did. I actually think that's one of the only times that really worked.
I agree, but I don't get it. I don't get what how is that selling your movie? Hey, remember that thing you liked 10 years ago? Here it is again.
Well, I think it was also a different time in the Bond franchise where it had gone through all that fucking weird shit with the rights to Bond, and then Brosnan comes in, and then there's another gap when Brosnan is either, as several of the Bond actors always say, they're never candid.
But the plan for Casino Royale.
Have you noticed? I don't know if you ever noticed this when you're reading. It seems like there's always they were either asked to leave or they wanted to leave. They've never, it's except Connery, you can get a straight answer. The rest of them, it's Moore was asked to leave. No, Moore says he wanted to leave. And it's the same with Brosnan. He wanted to do another one. No, he didn't want, no, we let him go. It's very funny. It's an embarrassment.
But we know the truth. We know the truth for both of those. They kicked Moore out, and Moore said that he quit because he was 60 years old and wanted to protect his image. And Pierce Brosnan was absolutely fired because Die Another Day didn't do as well as they wanted to, and they wanted to go in a different direction, which they absolutely did with Casino Royale, which is why I don't understand why they had the boldness to do an origin story, to do like gritty young James Bond, to have like blonde, weird, strong-arm, bare-knuckle boxer Daniel Craig, and then still hire Martin Campbell, the guy who directed GoldenEye.
You know what I think that might be? Maybe that was two things. The Broccoli's
It's always them hedging their bets. That's what it is.
Might be hedging their bets, but based upon perhaps the success of the huge gap between in terms of Bond of that era, in terms of the year gap between Dalton and Brosnan. And so when they got GoldenEye and it was such a hit, they might have been like, well, he rebooted us for fucking GoldenEye. Maybe he can do it again with Casino Royale.
Right,
you know?
Right, which is the least creative way of thinking about anything.
I agree, but I bet that's what went into it. They were like, well, he was hit during that, and you know, and he crossed over. Actually, when you think about it, Martin Campbell, he helmed the first Brosnan and he helmed the first Craig. So maybe they were like, well, he can handle a new guy.
I said. Yeah. But I mean, what is he going to direct the first whoever the next white guy is?
But I do think it's interesting that we did. I actually believe this to be true. This, you may disagree. I'm sure you read this. That Dalton was going to do the next one after License to Kill.
Yeah.
And then it just got into that whole legal thing with the studios. And then he says, and I don't know why I believe him, I just do, because he just seems like this kind of guy. He was like, you know what, like 5 years, I don't care anymore. And he just he just kind of quit. Because I think he was originally going to be in another one no matter how long it took.
That's bullshit. So here's what I'm looking at, which is the box office grosses, where the first one, The Living Daylights, made $191.2 million at the box office, came in at number 19 at the box office, okay? Then they followed up only 2 years later with License to Kill, which made $40 million less than the previous movie, came in at number 36 at the box office, made less money than Fletch Lives.
But you know why this is.
No.
Look what they released.
It's because they didn't like The Living Daylights, so then they didn't go see the next one.
I don't think that's all it was.
What do you think it is?
Well, I was reading that it was also released like almost concurrently with Batman, Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah. And James Bond, that's not a huge franchise that should be able to hold its own.
Lethal Weapon 2.
Mm-hmm.
You can't release James Bond in a summer of Batman. And so after that, they never released a Bond movie in summer ever again.
Well,
how's that?
I think it's stupid.
I don't think it's stupid.
I don't think they learned a lesson. I think they blamed it on an outward thing when they should be looking inward.
I don't buy that. And I don't think you're right about Dalton either. But
all right, you can live in your fantasy land. Timothy Dalton, he seems like a great guy, Henry. Great, honest fella, by all accounts.
You just think they booted his ass, that's all.
Yeah, I think they fucking fired him because he was bad for the franchise and nobody liked it.
Underappreciated man.
Yeah, I agree.
Could have happened that way, but yeah.
All right, so John Glenn's back to direct this thing. Richard Maybaum is back to write. This motherfucker's been writing these things since Dr. No. And Michael G. Wilson, who is a producer, is writing. I would like to stress that he is a producer, not a writer. But he wrote both of these movies. And he heavily wrote License to Kill because they were writing that during the writer's strike, so Richard Maybaum couldn't contribute to about 60% of it.
It's very interesting, yeah. I read that. How many fucking writer's strikes have they had? I feel like every other movie we cover, there's a writer's strike.
2.
That's it? Just 2?
I mean, 2 major ones, yeah.
Maybe it's because we cover so many different eras, and we stick every time we hit this era. I'm just like, God, fucking writer's strike.
Yeah,
2.
89 and 2008. Those were the biggies.
That's it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Very interesting. Well, we should also just briefly talk about the that this was originally going to go to Brosnan too, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's a whole thing going on.
It's a whole mess. Yeah, the Broccolis considered Pierce Brosnan, who was coming off of Remington Steele. It had just ended, and Sam Neill, who was like up and coming, doing a lot of like British television and theater. And by the way, I would love to see a Sam Neill James Bond. He's too quirky for James Bond. It would be weird.
It would be weird. I could weirdly see it. I think he'd be pretty tough. I think
I'd like it.
Yeah, it'd be definitely offbeat.
Yeah. So Brosnan. Oh, by the way, MGM also they pitched in. They wanted Mel Gibson, so that's great.
I saw that. Did you see they also offered Dalton? Apparently, from both sides admit this. They were looking at Dalton back after Connery. And he was like 24.
I mean, they must have considered it for a hot second. They love those types of stories. I mean, I'm sure they brought him in for a screen test or something.
Yeah. I don't even know if it went that far, but he, he was like 24 years old. But that would have been fucking insane. But anyway, okay,
It'd
go
be
ahead.
weird to have a Bond that young. I wouldn't like it.
I wouldn't either.
Can you imagine? I bet they do that. I bet Robert Pattinson's gonna be the next Bond.
No, he's not. I hope. I don't want to see that. I like Robert Pattinson, but I don't want to see that.
I wouldn't be shocked. So yeah, Brosnan. This was a crazy thing that happened, man. So they had decided they were ending Remington Steele, right? But the episodes from the final season were still airing. So when they it came out in the public, I guess, that Brosnan was being considered for James Bond, and so the ratings for Remington Steele went up, and then the network was like, well, fuck it, we'll renew this baby. And so then Brosnan couldn't be in this movie. It's like a Dougray Scott situation all over again.
Yeah, that's fucking
did you read that Stephanie Zimbalist also got caught up in this? Because Stephanie Zimbalist was the female lead in Remington Steele, and then she got cast in RoboCop.
Right.
And she had to turn that shit down because Remington Steele got randomly renewed because of this Bond rigmarole. And then the last season of Remington Steele, they aired the first 5 episodes. Interest had totally dropped back to nothing because no one cared that he wasn't Bond. And they canceled the show after 5 episodes.
It's fucked up, man. You know what's amazing, too, is even hearing you spell that out the way you did, is I can actually totally picture myself doing that kind of thing. Like if I heard who the next Bond was and I hadn't seen anything he was in and it was on TV and it was a show that might be going off, I'd be like, oh fuck, I'll check this out now and then watch it all and then to get acquainted, and then as soon as I'd be like, oh, well, that was a waste of time.
You watched any Remington?
When I was a kid, I remember it being on TV. I probably saw it then, but I don't remember anything about it at all.
Is that his name, Remington?
I hope so.
Is that a type of gun?
Sounds like it to me.
And
thankfully,
Steele,
I don't know.
Steele. That's his name? Remington Steele?
My name's Remington Steele. Remington.
I like that. That's your Pierce Brosnan as Remington Steele impression?
It's yes, Mrs. Doubtfire. That's my Pierce Brosnan. I did it for you once before, but you didn't care for it. But Remington Steele, maybe I've gotten better at doing it.
I think maybe I just find Remington Steele funny.
Okay. I lost the part, and Stephanie lost her part too to Nancy Allen.
This is the opening of Remington Steele. It's a gun. Sounds good. Wow. Stephanie Zimbalist's first build, by the way. Incredible. right, a car exploded. Brosnan's looking cool. Hey, Doris Roberts. What, the mom from Everybody Loves Raymond? You don't know Doris Roberts? All right, he just jumped from an explosion. Oh, Stephanie Zimbalist scared him. Now he's running from a car. Now he's kissing a hand. It's Zimbalists. Oh, there's a dead body. It's a compelling show, Henry.
Yeah.
I gotta say, all of that is just clips from the show. None of it.
That is the laziest theme song for that show. I would have never predicted that's what the theme to that show was. If you
I would have thought it was a lot faster.
Yeah, if you would have put that on and just said, Henry, guess what 80s show this is? It's a very famous show, and given me as many hints as I could have gotten.
What would be your first guess?
Oh, I would have said something like Matlock.
I would have said Barney Miller.
Yeah, 100% Barney Miller with that little horn.
Yeah. It's like Taxi, the lone horn.
Yeah, with a big fat stash. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, this film was nominated for one award.
Oh boy, I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah. The Saturns took notice of The Living Daylights. Yeah.
Did they give it to Osama bin Laden?
You mean the person that James Bond is definitely teaming up with in this movie?
Hey, the Americans are on their side in the 80s. There you go.
Go Afghanistan.
Isn't that something? Oh, I just pulled up to get my theme songs. It looks like our friend Olivia changed some. Oh, no, she did not change the font.
Maybe click on the theme song.
I'm trying, okay? It's,
I wasted time with that Remington Steele theme song. I loved it, though. Hey, could you just say it? Saturn is between your anus, and Neptune. Saturn Awards, Sci-Fi Best of 6 films.
Okay, that was kind of piss poor. We'll do it the right way, okay? All right. Of course, now it loaded, but I'm going to do it live. We're going to do it live. I'm going to do it live.
Okay.
Saturn, it's between Uranus and Neptune. Saturn Awards, Sci-Fi Best of Film.
Wow, that's beautiful stuff, Henry. Okay. You'll love it. It's great.
Acapella.
All right. It was nominated for Best Fantasy Film. I don't know why, but it lost to The Princess Bride, which seems correct. Number 19 at the box office for that year, Henry, between Broadcast News and Eddie Murphy Raw. It made slightly more money than Eddie Murphy Raw. Wow. That's how huge Eddie Murphy was.
God damn. I thought you were going to say Beverly Hills Cop 2 or something. Oh, that was way up, actually. Yeah. Okay.
Right, so it's no secret that I was bored watching The Living Daylights, but how about I introduce this segment? I was so bored that I started thinking about the title a lot, The Living Daylights. All right.
Yeah, I know. You left a Letterboxd review, which I wish you wouldn't have, because of course I read it, and then you didn't like the movie, so it was kind of a spoiler.
Yeah, I didn't care. I really disliked the movie. I knew I was going to say that right from jump, and so whatever. So this film, The Living Daylights, what a terrible title, Henry.
Oh, I disagree. I think it's one of the best Bond titles ever, despite the movie.
What?
It's a fucking great title.
He walks away. You know, he like shoots at that one lady, and he goes, "I must have scared the living daylights out of her."
They probably shouldn't have had him say the title. That is never really a good idea.
It was terrible.
However, they have done that. Yeah. However, they have done that in several Bond movies. For Your Eyes
Dr.
Only.
No, he's a character.
Goldfinger. Diamonds Are Forever, I believe. No, do they? I don't remember.
Diamonds in the sky if you feel the vibe.
Remember that throwback Tuesday.
Yeah. Thursday.
Yeah, I love the title. I think it's very Bondy.
It is very Bondy. It is very Bondy. I'm not arguing that. I just think it's a stupid version of the type of title that Bond movies have. And so I decided I would try to come up with more. And so here I have written down 5 potential titles for James Bond movies. Tell me these don't sound like James Bond movies.
I'll be very excited if you did this series in all seriousness.
I took this seriously, Henry.
Because it'd be impressive if they're good.
I have 5. Are you ready? These 5 are good, I think. Number 1. Yesterday is Forever.
That's just a take. That's just a take on it. All right.
Okay, next.
No.
A Cheap Way to Die Rich. What do you think? It just can't make sense. That's the only rule.
Well, obviously that's a part of it, but okay, go ahead.
Okay, next. A Cold Day in Heaven.
That's a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next. Sleep Perchance to Die. What do you think?
The perchance kind of takes it out of the...
But to die brings it back.
Brings it back. Goes in. To sleep is great.
Thank you.
And then it goes in and out there.
Okay.
The old in out.
Here's the last one. Are you ready for this?
Oh, it's a killer.
It's a great one. The enemy of my enemy is my enemy.
He likes his own writing, folks. We know that already. That's good. That's good.
I'm very proud.
The enemy of my enemy is my enemy, and my help me out, Bond theme.
I don't know who's this Bond guy you're doing. I thought it was Adele at first, but then it turned a corner to like Chris Cornell territory.
All right, who would sing "The enemy of my enemy is my enemy"? Or what type of song? Would
it be like a great point. Yeah, I think it's got a metallic sheen. I think maybe you get Daft Punk to do it. Yeah, they can do it.
I can't lead off with a Daft Punk thing.
All right, well, I'm sorry. All right, let's talk about the...
It could be Radiohead.
Yeah, sure. They wrote one for Spectre.
Enemy is my
God.
enemy.
Back off the mic for that one.
All right, that's really bad. I'm sorry. I have Radiohead in the brain. I was listening to the Bends a lot lately.
Good album.
Great album. Better than I remembered. Really like it a lot.
Oh, yeah? What's the worst song on the Bends?
I haven't made rankings yet.
Okay. All right, next up. The movie, Living Daylights. So it starts with sort of... I thought it was like a War Games kind of a thing at first, like the beginning of From Russia with Love, but it's not. It's like it seems like a real mission.
It's not a real mission, but yeah.
What? But I thought they're trying to shoot at the... Oh, is that a later?
Well,
I'm already confused.
Yeah, it's a training exercise, and when they land, after they skydive out of the plane, it turns out it is just it's trying to pick off agents, and it's been infiltrated, so it turns into a real one. They kill the guy, they kill 2 agents, and then... Oh,
yeah, the War Games are sabotaged.
Correct, because when Dalton's like running around, he sees his comrade fall down the Rock of Gibraltar, and he realizes it's real. I think that's our first look at Dalton, and very steely.
He's got a tushy chin.
Very steely, yeah. And then
it's the tushiest chin. Well, Roger Moore has a tushy chin as well, so it's not the first time they've gone for
big dimple right there. Yeah, got the jutting.
It's not really a dimple; it's more a line, like an ass crack.
No. Cary Grant had one of those, I'll have you know, and it went very well for him.
Yeah, a lot of guys do. You know, I'm not complaining. He looks great.
But you can never see it because I've covered it for 20 years.
Is that right? You have a tushy chin?
A little dimple.
That's fucking insane. I kind of can see it beyond. Oh my god, you gotta shave your beard so I can see that butt.
Yeah, it's a dimple.
Yeah, it's more of a John Travolta kind of a thing.
Please don't say that. Any other guy with a dimple, please.
Johnny T, baby, from Gotti. All right, next up. Living Daylights. All right, so Bond encounters a monkey, then there's a chase, and then he ends up on a yacht with a sexy lady, and an Aha song plays.
I like the opening sequence. I think the opening sequence is good because it, like, straight out the gate, just even seeing Dalton in there. I'm going to attempt to talk about this movie in a semi-serious way, even though I know Dan fucking hated it, which is difficult to do, but
you can talk. I didn't. I'm not going to give it a 1 or anything. Like, there's things I liked about it. It was just...
I'm not giving it a very high rating either, for the record.
Yeah.
I just think it's better than you. And I was also trying to kind of, when I was watching it, I've actually seen this movie a lot because, weirdly, I don't remember why or how, I had this movie...
Because it was the late 80s. You were a kid. You were into Bond.
I had this movie on VHS store-bought, but I didn't buy it until I was in my 20s, weirdly, and I never had License to Kill. So even though License to Kill was the one that I remember seeing on TV a lot as a kid, The Living Daylights I've seen like a million times, and so, but I haven't watched it in forever. So, but anyway, coming out of A View to a Kill.
Yeah, what?
I lost my train of thought. Coming into this and then seeing Dalton with that opening sequence, I think is pretty cool, and I think it's a good, solid, quick. It's not belabored.
Yeah, and then let's dissipate all that cool with a hot Aha appearance.
Well, did you like? Did you like the opening sequence at all? Like the truck stunts and all? I mean, what are we talking?
Not particularly.
So you gotta admire. See, I liked it. We were kind of in the era still of where a lot of those stunts are real. And I think they're done pretty well. I mean, I think you can see, even though you can see the stunt man.
This sequence serves to introduce the Timothy Dalton version of Bond. I think it does a serviceable job at that. John Glenn, there's nothing propelling the story. There's nothing, like, it's just dead. It's such a dead movie to watch.
Yeah, okay. Well, I like that he does, when he parachutes, he lands on a beautiful yacht. They're checking off all the pointers before they have to get into the movie, which is,
Well, they need Bond to fuck right away because Bond is going to be monogamous in this movie, and so
it's the late 80s now. This is what starts to happen in James Bond. License to Kill.
Condom.
Yeah, and we always do the shag counts.
He only fucks 2 in this one, right?
That's correct, and in the next one. And I don't have a Dalton shag count recording.
You have to do one, Jesus.
I don't have a Dalton impression. That's I had the Roger Moore and
that might be a problem with Dalton too. He's maybe not distinctive enough.
Yeah. I don't know. Pierce Brosnan as Bond, I wouldn't call any more distinctive. I mean, he just raises his eyebrows a lot more.
Yeah, he's silly. He's like soapy Bond. That's what.
To more a little bit.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right.
And then with Craig, you can argue they went back to Dalton, but I mean, they just went whole hog with it.
Yeah. But anyway, the shag count is very low. It's true.
Great. All right, there's a sexy female sniper, all right? And she's a sniper / cellist, all right? So that's great information to have.
She doesn't know. She's not really a sniper, of course, so that's
she's pretending to be a sniper right now in this part of the story, all right? Jesus. All right, so she's Mariam Diabo, who I think is Olivia Diabo's mom or something.
I don't. But not one of the best Bond girls, in my opinion.
Not one of the best Bond girls, in your opinion?
She's nice. She's cute. But she's
Yeah.
just
What didn't you like about her? Was it her piss poor acting?
As a future proponent and huge fan of the next one we'll be discussing, Carrie Lowell.
Oh,
I will say
Henry. Carrie Lowell. Can I just say, hubba.
Okay, Jesus
Christ. Carrie Lowell knocked me into fucking orbit.
I know, man.
Like that movie, fuck Living Daylights, but License to Kill, in terms of the ladies, it opens with Talisa Soto, who of course played Sindel in the Mortal Kombat films, and
Which I don't remember that at all.
yeah, and then I'm already like, God, they really upped their game with this Bond girl situation, and then like halfway through the movie, fucking Carrie Lowell showed up. I lost my mind.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah. And she's good too. She's like
Carrie Lowell's a good actor. You know my favorite Carrie Lowell performances?
I haven't seen much, so
she is in one scene, but one of my favorite scenes in the movie Leaving Las Vegas. It is when
the bank teller sequence.
Yes, he's about to leave LA for Vegas, and he stops in a bank, and he's a mess. He's going through alcohol withdrawal horribly. And she plays a bank teller who is just nice to him for a minute, and asks, I think, if he needs help. And she's amazing in that scene.
I remember when I saw that in the theater, and I was probably one of the only nerds there who was like, "Holy shit, that's fucking Bond girl from License to Kill." Because I was only 6 years after.
And she has a distinctive look. She like rocked that like sort of short bowl cut or whatever for years.
Anyway, we'll get back to her.
All right, so back to this shitty one. She's. Did you like that she's a cellist? I felt like they were ripping off Ghostbusters too. No, Ghostbusters 1. It's because she's an art restorer in Ghostbusters 2.
You're right. She is a cellist. Dana is a cellist. I only liked it because I got to hear a lot of good classical music throughout this movie. That was a nice thing, and they had good taste in what they chose. So that was the only reason.
That's nice.
Yeah, you recognize the first thing you hear. Mozart's 40th.
I recognize them all, man. It's hard for me to pull, like, I can't say, oh, that's Mozart's 40th.
Oh, it's my unique ability.
Yeah. All right. We got Moneypenny back at the office. What happened here?
Lois Maxwell no longer with the franchise.
Yeah, but if you want to talk the hottest Bond girl in this movie, I'd like to bring up Miss Moneypenny.
She's got a little nerdy thing to her that works. She's in both movies, and then she got the boot too, man. It's funny. I think this movie, as at times plodding as parts can be, it's just bizarre because they look at the cast in this movie. I mean, they're almost all misused. Hold on, let me finish.
No one is in this movie.
Joe Don Baker.
So? I'm going to give you a big so for that.
Oh, that's not fair. He's fucking great in Fletch.
But I'm saying, like, in the next one, it's like Benicio del Toro and Robert Davi and shit. This movie has nobody.
This one knocks it out of the park with the cast. But I'm just saying, there are things to be used here that just aren't utilized as well. You got Joe Don Baker, you got John Rhys-Davies, you got...
I'm going to say a big who cares for that, too.
Jerome Krabbe, who's always a good villain in a movie. You got fucking the killer from Die Hard. Do you remember the blonde killer from the brother who the first one Bruce Willis kills and then hangs in the elevator and writes in blood?
I mean, I know what you're talking about, but who cares? In the next one, you get Robert Davi from Die Hard.
He keeps going. There's a lot of Die Hard crossovers in License to Kill in this.
It was a very popular film at the time.
Yeah, you get like 3. Robert Davi, the DEA agent.
How was Alan Rickman never in a Bond movie?
What a villain he would have been.
He should have been the villain in, like, Tomorrow Never Dies or some shit.
No, they went with Jonathan Pryce.
That's a downgrade, if you ask me.
Totally agree. Anyway, I'm just saying I think that they had a decent cast here, but they don't use anybody or they give Jodan Baker like
I would say it's not a decent cast. It's a below average cast.
I disagree fully.
Replacement level Bond cast.
We both really very much liked, as I recall. I mean, it was fucking 6 years ago, but I really love Jerome Krabbe in The Fugitive. He's one of the best performances in that movie, and I mean, I think he's a very good actor. And
I mean, well, yeah, sure, maybe he's the sixth best performance in The Fugitive. You want me to really defend this guy?
I'm too harsh on these people. I think they're fine. You know, I mean, I think the movie, it just suffers
from... Can I talk about some specifics? This whole episode is just you defending this movie.
Oh, I'm just trying to... All you're doing is attacking it.
Well, I'm trying to get through it, and I'm still at the very beginning.
All right, go ahead. You're right. Go ahead.
All right. Fucking James is still leading Moneypenny on. That drove me nuts.
I knew it would.
He's like inviting her for like a night out on the town, and she's like, great, let's go. And then he's just sort of like, oh, maybe another time. Like, fuck off, James.
Can't do it.
Meanwhile, let's check in on Q. What's he up to lately? Oh, just building a ghetto blaster that shoots missiles.
It's 87.
So, who's he building this for in the MI6? Which MI6 agent can look normal carrying a ghetto blaster?
I do believe he says he's building it for the Americans.
Great. Okay. Well, I think that's great. Let's really take down some inner city drug dealers with some missiles. All right.
It's a bit of a leap. Okay.
All right. Then, Moneypenny, at this point, after the Q scene, invites James Bond over to her apartment to listen to some Barry Manilow, which is That's very funny. Nice invitation.
Very funny scene. I like that.
Very funny. It's a very nice invitation. To me, if I'm James Bond, I would go. Like, even if you're taking this as the opportunity to go, like, listen, Miss Moneypenny, we're not going to fuck, but I love your company, and I would enjoy coming over to your apartment to listen to some Manilow. Can we do that platonically? You know, at least do something like that. You know what he does instead? Doesn't answer her yes or no, slaps her ass, and then walks away.
I don't remember him slapping her ass.
He slapped her butt. There was even a subtitle that said butt slap.
I thought you just put her glasses on crooked. Remember
slapped
that?
Her butt.
But you remember that when he put her glasses on?
Yeah, he's just constantly really flirting with her.
Yeah. First of all, there's no platonic relationship with a female possible with James Bond. We know that already. So if he's not going to fuck her...
He's done it with Moneypenny for all these years.
There's a flirtation there going on, though. So when they eventually do have sex in 2048, it will be explosive.
I don't think he's ever planning on fucking her, you know? She ages into Lois Maxwell, and he just gets recast.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So,
Moneypenny. I think she's... What do you think of this Moneypenny, though? I mean, we've had Lois Maxwell for 23 years.
Oh, you came out, I was horned up. She was great. I loved her.
Yeah, she was nice.
What's her name? The actress?
It's Clarissa something, or Clarissa?
Caroline Bliss is her name. So you combined Caroline and Bliss to create Clarisse. Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah. Has she done anything? No, 18 credits. The last one in 1996. Poor fella. All right, next up. Q. Oh, Q has some more boring ass gadgets. I guess I wrote.
See, I love Q's gadgets. I love we get the old M. Go ahead.
It was nice to see Desmond Llewellyn. He's actually really good in both these movies.
He's fantastic in License to Kill, and I was thrilled that they gave him so much screen time.
Yeah, I agree. I noticed that all of Q's gadgets, Henry, are sponsored somehow by Philips. I don't understand why Philips, the electronics company, would have their name on all of Q's gadgets.
That would be a bad thing to do, I would think, because if one of those gadgets is recovered, Philips would be liable.
I
and
would
maybe
think they're a very public company, and I don't know why they're manufacturing things for MI6.
I never ever noticed that.
I think I know why. Because this was during a period where Sony was trying to buy a movie studio. And they put in a bid for MGM. And MGM turned them down. And then Sony bought Columbia and Columbia TriStar and made a mess of that. But my feeling is that Philips at the time was Sony's number one competitor. And MGM put Philips in an MGM picture, in a Bond picture, to say fuck you to Sony.
Really?
I think so.
That's very funny. I mean, first of all, I didn't notice the Philips thing at all. But I also Philips was like Sony. This is the '80s, and fucking this was the big thing when all the American market was terrified of Japanese takeover.
Yes, absolutely.
Products, yeah. And Philips is British, right? Is that a British?
I know they're not Asian or Oriental, as License to Kill likes to say.
Yes, they do say that twice.
More than twice.
Twice, because I counted. Because
come now.
After your review,
you missed a couple.
No, you had me on the alarm, so I had to look out. Yeah. Anyway, that's very interesting. But I love the Q scenes. I think they're all good. I think Dalton is good in all the scenes throughout that. I think you're getting to know him and his reactions and responses and his sense of humor, which I believe, by the way, for the record, is totally there, despite everybody saying he has no sense of humor. I don't think that's true at all. I think it goes back to what we were saying in the beginning.
I just don't think it's what the movies are aiming for. I think Dalton could probably do a Roger Moore Bond if that's what he was asked to do, but that's not what the movie is.
Yeah.
All right. So he gets an Aston Martin, which is kind of a big deal because we haven't had one of those since The Spy Who Loved Me, and that's like the signature Bond car. I will say it looks significantly cooler than any car he's had since the Aston Martin.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't even remember the absence of the Aston Martin in all these movies. I know in The Spy Who Loved Me he has that Lotus, because that's the thing that goes underwater and that shit. So it's been a real long time since we've seen it. I'm not a car guy.
No,
neither of us are. Yeah,
no, but if I notice that a car looks cool, then it probably looks pretty cool.
Well, they make a point of it, do they not? Like when Q is showing him, he's like, here's try not to wreck the Aston.
Yeah, and then we get a long-ass, like, power demonstration sequence. It's like, here's all the things my car can do.
I like that, because that's like a real throwback to the Connery.
He's got a good joke in there when he cuts the car in half, and then he goes, salt corrosion.
He's got a lot of those little tidbits throughout this movie. Yeah.
That scene started off cool, that sequence, but then the car ended up inside of like a little house, and then he was driving around with the little house on the car. What the fuck was that?
Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's 1 foot in more and 1 foot in the future, and they don't know where to go. That's what it is, and that's the same with riding down the mountain in a cello case.
Riding down the mountain reminded me so much of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, because there's like that whole riding down a snowy mountain sequence in that movie.
And Spy Who Loved Me, which has that huge ski chase in the beginning before the opening credits. Yeah.
This is a hill that they escape to far too often.
Yeah. So I think it's really trying to be. I guess it's like a difficult thing, right? They're always trying to bridge the gap to make Bond fans happy, but also they're trying to compete with the burgeoning 1987 action movies, which kind of they shouldn't really do.
I mean, that's why they put fucking drug dealers in License to Kill, right. and holy shit, it's boring. I mean, these movies are like some of my most bored tropes. Like, oh my God, Russian shit, I find so... Listen, I'm sorry if you're Russian out there listening to the show. I find your country boring. I don't want to spend any time there in movies. Like, the Americans, it's amazing that they got me to watch that show. And every time they would cut to like Arkady hanging out in Russia, I would tune out.
That was a great show, and well, you got me to watch that show. I was never going to watch it because espionage is not my
right. But all I cared about was like the suburban squabble shit.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, the thing is, again, it's a total product of the times. Although it's really amazing how long like Bond is stuck in this Russian thing. I mean, since Dr. No, not that movie particularly, but since that first movie era, the Russians were our enemies.
Well, because Bond kicked off at the beginning of the Cold War, and we're still there in 1987.
And so it's nice whenever there's a movie like License to Kill, which is, when we get to it, one of the main reasons I really like License to Kill is that it's not a world-dominating megalomaniac. It's just a fucking drug dealer.
I don't care about a world-dominating megalomaniac because I like high stakes in a James Bond movie, but I prefer something like Tomorrow Never Dies, where he's like trying to conquer the media or something.
Yeah.
Like, give me that.
That was just getting too...
I love that shit.
Yeah, and I actually think Tomorrow Never Dies is the second best Brosnan, but
I think it's the best Brosnan.
Yeah, but I don't know. But anyway, so this plot is just extremely convoluted. I mean, essentially, it's a Russian general who supposedly wants to defect, and he fakes his own assassination attempt.
It's so boring. Keep going.
It's very, very convoluted, and it turns out all he's doing is dealing with an American arms dealer. He stole money from the Russians so he can.
And it's me, Joe Don Baker, and I like to recreate Civil War battles on this thing.
That was terrible.
Like that one really boring storyline in season 2 of Twin Peaks.
It was. Oh, yeah. It was really a dumb usage of him. I think he was actually, frankly, scarier in Fletch as the corrupt.
Easily.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to fuck with him in that movie.
This guy was a noble. I was like, who is this character? Is this that fucking sheriff that we saw in those Roger Moore movies?
Yeah, right. J.W. Pepper.
Oh, that's right, Pepper.
J.W. Pepper. Yeah. So, basically Bond it's using the Bond girl, I don't remember her name in it. What's her character?
Mariam Diabo is the actress.
I was trying to remember her name in the fucking movie.
I don't know. Horny Go Tits. Horny Go Tits.
Yeah. Kara.
Yeah, that's right. They don't give silly names in the Timothy Dalton ones.
Stop that.
Well, they bring it back, though, for Brosnan, because there's Christmas Jones.
Of course they do. Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of silly names in the Brosnan ones. But, Xena on the top. GoldenEye.
That's a classic. Yeah, she'll fucking crack your neck with those legs.
Kid Johnson.
Yeah, beautiful gams.
Nice gams. Nice gams. But yeah, so he's like kind of her girlfriend, but not really. And then
they're dating. Come on, they go to the carnival together. It's a very romantic night.
I actually like that sequence because anything that was sort of like when they meets with Saunders, the sort of curly-cued, very average-looking agent who he does not like Bond, but they meet in the cafe.
Yeah.
So he agrees.
He's sort of following them around for a minute.
Right. So he finally agrees to help Bond, and then Bond meets him, and then when he leaves him, Necros, the hitman.
He's the best of the villains. He's the only one that at least has a look.
And that's kind of not how it should be. I mean, you should have a great henchman, but it shouldn't be bad.
Right. For every odd job, there needs to be a fucking Goldfinger.
100%. Exactly right. Yeah. And so, but he is good. He likes the Pretenders a lot.
The Pretenders had a lovely little song at the end of this movie over the closing credits, which was appallingly bad. As a huge Pretenders fan myself,
it was not a good song.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to hear the song that he's listening to on the Walkman sounded better.
They're good at that point. In 1987, the Pretenders were still producing, man.
Yeah. But anyway, the way he kills that agent is very cool and kind of disturbing. I mean, it doesn't look that bad nowadays, but he basically rigs a sliding glass door to crush him when he walks through, and I thought that was pretty cool. And
that wasn't the best kill in the movie, though. The best was when he used those boobs as distraction.
Did you see? We got a little.
I could not believe I was looking at boobs in this James Bond movie.
Either.
All right, so he walks into this room. He's like running away from someone at this point. He sees a naked lady, and he just like, what does he do? He hides, and so like the dude walks into the room, sees a naked lady, is like shocked, like he has the reaction you get when you see a naked lady, and then James Bond in that split second kills him. It's pretty ball.
But that was very surprising. I don't know. Maybe we've seen some partial nudity in these Bonds.
No, we have, but I can't remember. Like this was like full on frontal nudity.
It's pretty close. Yeah. So anyway, it turns into just basically an espionage thing, and it's like a trades deal for arms and opium and all kinds of shit. So basically, what ends up happening at the point of it is that Bond ends up
in Afghanistan.
Yeah, because this is also during the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. So it's like, it's so fucked up when we're like looking at it now. It's like, Afghan is like our friend, quote unquote.
Yeah, this is when we were giving Bin Laden the weapons to fight a war against us.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so this is the Mujahideen. They say it right there.
Yeah. We're just James Bond teams up. It's James Bond and the Taliban versus the KGB. That's the third act of this movie.
This is true.
Yeah. And Felix Leiter shows up.
We do get some Felix Leiter. That's absolutely right.
The worst character in James Bond history.
Love Felix Leiter.
I'll never remember ever. And another new actor playing him in this movie, the great John Terry, who played, of course, Jack's dad in Lost.
Oh, and that's very funny because you know what I thought of him right away from?
What?
I was like, I know this guy. He's the fucking, in the same year as this movie, in Full Metal Jacket, he is the recipient of my favorite Private Joker line in the movie. He's Joker's boss in The Reporter. Like he's the guy, the head reporter, and he's telling him about Anne Margaret and her. And yeah, he's the guy. Well, Joker, he like sends him into the combat zone. Do you remember him at all in that?
No, of course not.
No, well, maybe because I've seen it 3 million times.
I remember him as Jack's dad from Lost.
Right, he tells
all the woods as a ghost.
He tells the reporters all this stuff about all this attacks and all this of the Viet Cong, and then there's silence, and then Matthew Modine goes, "Does this mean Anne Margaret's not coming, sir?"
All right, so they fight in Afghanistan. He gets put in prison for a second. He breaks out in like under 30 seconds, and also frees a random other prisoner. Which I wondered, like, is that the origin of 9/11? Is that like he doesn't know what that guy's in prison for?
It's very true.
Maybe that's the fucking guy who drove the plane into the towers.
I don't know, man.
Speaking of planes, Bond drives a plane a lot in this third act. He's got a big camouflage attack plane from the United States Army, it seems. And I wondered about this.
You're talking about when he's on the plane with the opium bags and shit?
The big jumbo jet at the end.
That whole sequence is great.
Why is it camouflage? Now, so...
Well, it's a desert plane, so... It's a desert plane, is it not?
Well, the camouflage, though, is the usual, like, Vietnam brush. Like the green, different shades of green. Now, they're in Afghanistan, Henry. So on the ground, there's nothing green. And then when they're in the air, I would argue that the sky is also not a shade of green. So I'm wondering why the plane was painted that way.
Well, I don't know what it is. I think it's a Russian plane, first of all, because it's the Russians who are there.
Not a lot of green in Russia, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, you might be wrong with that, but
I wouldn't know. They're very boring to me.
I was trying to find out the logistics of. I mean, I don't know. I know something about this, but I was trying to find out the logistics of why there would be a Russian prison in Afghanistan during the war.
Well, it was like a kind of a base, I guess. It might have just been like a temporary prison like a barracks situation. Not barracks. What do they call that? Like a, what do they call it on a ship? Is it barracks?
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean, like a hold,
you send them the brig.
Brig. It's like a brig.
Yeah, it's a brig. That's what I thought.
That's good. Yeah. Well, I liked that final sequence. I mean, the movie takes a long time to get where it's going.
I just couldn't wait for it to be over at that point.
I know. I just didn't. I was with the movie for most of it. It was just some of the characters were clunky. I didn't. Some of the writing was clunky, but it's oddly enough. This is might surprise you, but the direction of John Glenn didn't noticeably bother me until actually License to Kill, which is where I really noticed. Yeah, I was blaming it more on Living Daylights. I guess if I rewatched it even again now, I think I'd notice the direction more. But I think at this viewing, I was really just thinking it's the writing that was making this slow.
I listened to a lot of Bob Dylan after I finished this movie.
So you went more bored.
Well, there's all that stuff about them going to Tangier. And every time I hear Tangier, I get the song If You See Her, Say Hello by Bob Dylan stuck in my head, because the first line of that song is, if you see her, say hello. She might be in Tangier. And so, like, I want to listen to that every time I hear the word Tangier, which isn't often.
Interesting. Every time I hear Tangier, I think of Casino, because I believe their casino in that is Tangier.
Okay. Well, teach their own.
What did you think of the Aha song, by the way? Which, of course, we ranked. I don't remember where it ranked on our lists, but
yeah, I like it on some level because I like when they hire bands that are of the moment. Like, sure. I don't think that James Bond's songs need to be like Goldfinger is sort of this like instant classic that's still a classic and like feels modern today and is great.
Yeah.
But like, like, people have a problem when they'll get someone like Duran Duran to do A View to a Kill, or even like that Madonna Die Another Day song or something. But like, that song's terrible. But it doesn't bother me when they do that. I think they should hire like really popular acts of the time.
I think that's
that bothered me when they hired Jack White a few years ago. Like, that seemed like, or even Chris Cornell. It felt like a soft choice, like a safe choice. Like, they'll put together a song that's listenable and good and fine. Like, I think it's way more interesting when they go to like, and I don't like the song, but like, I thought Sam Smith was the right choice for that movie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was picking so you think you prefer when they go just full whole hog and go for the most popular guy around rather than like kind of retro.
I think Adele for Skyfall is the platonic ideal of what a Bond song should be. She was the biggest thing in the world at that time. She put together a song that sounded like her but also sounded like a Bond song, and it was great.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I think Sam Smith had the potential to do that, and it just didn't go through. Jack White, they hired Jack White because they know Jack White's going to turn in a song that sounds like a Bond song.
Yeah, it's fucking great. It's a very good one.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the Duran Duran one, I always get this one and the Duran Duran one confused. The Duran Duran song's a lot better.
But this one is more 80s, so I kind of like that. Like, this one has like those 80s drums. And, like, it's odd to hear that in a Bond theme.
Yeah. Well, it was also kind of neat, speaking of the music, that you got a lot of the theme songs throughout the movie that were based on that song. Like, you get that in every Bond movie, but not to this extent. Like, it's always referencing the fucking theme song. Constantly. And the Pretenders song all the time. They're always doing it.
I wonder if they weren't sure which one would. I wonder if they did they ask for both to be the opening credits song and then they chose?
Maybe it could have been that way. Yeah, absolutely could have been that way. Yeah. So anyway, I think it ends with a pretty decent, pretty cool aerial sequence in that giant plane. I dug it, and Dalton brings back some fucking believability, or maybe we should even say, since it was the '60s, and it would be unfair to Connery to say it's not believable, but actually believability that he could actually physically pull some of this shit off. Because, I mean, let's remember the last time we checked in with James Bond, it was Roger Moore climbing on top of the Golden Gate Bridge. So
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. That's a fun sequence.
Oh,
I like that sequence more than anything in this movie.
Yeah, no, but you know what I mean. Like, I liked his and Necros's sort of aerial fight with the
yeah. It was,
and I just yeah. So anyway, I mean, that's kind of it. One of the weirdest sequences is at the very end when she's playing her solo debut.
Yeah.
And at the end, she goes backstage, and M is there, and Q is there, I think, and all these people. And then the Mujahideen break in, and they're all there, and they go, "Sorry you were late. We had some trouble at the airport."
Yeah, what do you think that trouble was?
I don't know.
Are we checking them for box cutters? All right, anyway, whatever. Fucking, this movie sucks. That ending was awful. By the way, that action sequence ends and you're like, great, the movie's over. And then it just keeps going for another 10 minutes.
When he goes back to Joe Don Baker's house.
Horrible.
Yeah.
All right, I give it 2 stars out of 5. What do you give it?
I really, really wanted to go into this movie giving it a 4. Just because I've seen it so many times.
Some of our listeners loved it, by the way. I read some of the reviews.
I saw, and I did too, and I respect all of them. I like them a lot.
I respect most of them.
I think this review, as with all Bond movies in my life, could change. But right now on this viewing for this show, I do feel comfortable, honestly, rating this movie a 3.
Great.
I'm giving it 3 stars.
Who's your MVP?
I think it's pretty clear in this movie. I thought about this quite a bit, and I think in this particular movie, I don't know how you don't give the MVP to Timothy Dalton.
No, I know. I looked for alternate options, and there really aren't any. Except, unless you want to go like Moneypenny or Q or something, but I'm not. So Timothy Dalton is my guy for this one for sure. And my LVP, I'm going to go with actually, I thought about going with the Bond girl because she really is awful. But whatever, she's hot. That's what they're looking for. And I went with Jonathan Rhys-Davies, who I think is a truly trash villain. He just brings nothing to the role. Whatever, General Pushkin.
Okay, yeah, he's an ally, but okay.
Oh, then right. You know what? He's so boring. I think I'm thinking of Koskov. So Jarrow and Crabbe. I guess I liked him in The Fugitive, but I'm gonna give him my LVP here.
Fair enough. And I'll go with his cohort. I'm going with Joe Don Baker, whose character is just ridiculous.
That's fine. You go with my character. I'll survive. An LVP.
What'll it be, Fletch? Yeah. Yeah.
Let's what?
There's a Fletch line.
Oh.
About Joe Don Baker.
He's still doing Fletch. Okay, next. Licensed to Kill. No, License to Kill.
Can we hear those opening bars to the song?
Can I play the opening bars of License to Ill instead?
Well, that's great too. I mean, that's great too. But,
so what are you asking me for? What's the name of this song?
Gladys Knight. Yeah, this is a great song.
You
Dan
like this one?
We both did when we ranked the Bond songs. I think you.
I like it as a song. I don't know that I love it in the movie.
Oh, I think it works.
See, this is what you hire, though. This is the opposite of Aha. You hire Gladys Knight because she's going to do a song that sounds like a Bond song.
That's right.
Yeah. Listen to that. It basically sounds like Goldfinger.
Yep.
Gold. Wait, no, it would be here. Goldfinger. Goldfinger.
This is a great part here.
It sounds like the beginning of Don't Let Go by En Vogue. You know what I'm talking about?
So?
Alright, so that's Gladys Knight. Now I'm gonna play you the beginning of Don't Let Go by...
This night's fucking great. I'm gonna mention something about that Goldfinger, yeah. Ooh, En Vogue! Come on now!
Pretty similar.
You're gonna get it!
What a classic. Alright. So that's a classic that sounds like this song.
By the way, you mentioned the Goldfinger thing. One of the last things I read before we recorded, this blew my fucking mind, and this is extreme. You know, I'm all for the copywriting, and it should be very strictly enforced, but this is fucking absurd. So apparently when they took that opening 2 notes, the horn thing,
Yeah.
they gave there was some sort of infringement upon the Goldfinger song because they
You
thought
have to, because it's a Bond song. Listen, I would argue, if it was just a random song and they were like, hey, those 2 notes sound like Goldfinger, I would call it bullshit. But if you're just ripping it off in a Bond song. Like, you have to acknowledge that.
yeah, but isn't it like all part of the same like shared family? Like,
No, it's not a fucking shared family. People are making money from this. And the people who wrote Goldfinger deserve to make money from this ripoff.
It'd be great if it was John Barry who wrote both of them, and he sued himself.
I wouldn't put it past this stupid company.
27 years ago, I wrote the Goldfinger song and like some money back for it.
That sounds like John Barry.
It's John Barry. I'm working on Dances with Wolves for some fellow named Wolfsna.
Step back, all right? So...
From the impression or from the mic?
From the mic. You were getting real close. All right.
I was getting carried away. It's emotional for me.
I can tell. All right, License to Kill. So the last movie, nobody liked it, so why not bring back the exact same creative team? The director is the same, both writers the same. Remember, one of them's not a writer. July 10th, 1989 was the release date, so I guess the last one ever released in the summer.
That's a big... You can knock that statistic I brought you, but that's pretty interesting.
I only brought after Batman. All that shit came out in June. They should be making money.
I just found it interesting. It was clearly a turning point for the franchise. They never did it again. That means something.
Yeah, it scared them. It scared them. Yeah.
Definitely.
I think No Time to Die was supposed to come out in the summer for a minute, and then COVID happened.
I don't know that it really applies anymore because Daniel Craig brought that shit back to life, so they probably could have released that.
All the Brosnan movies came out around, like, November.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember when I saw them in theaters. I actually don't even remember Casino Royale not coming out in the summer. I thought it did, but
it might have. I didn't see that one in theaters, so I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'd sort of like I was like not into Bond. I was going to not watch the Daniel Craig Bonds, and then everyone was like, dude, it's really good.
Yeah, I mean, of all people, I should have dropped them after Die Another Day, but I can't do that. It's in me blood.
I know it is. I know.
So, but so go ahead.
Yeah. So it had a budget of 32. They actually dropped the budget, interestingly. I guess because it's like a lower stakes movie. And then big BO of 156.1, which is good, but not what they wanted. It came at number 36 at the box office between Fletch Lives and Lean on Me.
Saw that in the theater.
Yeah.
Both of was in the theater.
So that's what it's competing against. It's nowhere near Lethal Weapon 2 and Batman. It's competing against Lean on Me.
Well, it's not near them in number, but it was near them in release date, I think.
No, but what I'm saying is, the audience had their choice, and they chose not Bond.
True.
Yeah.
Right.
So, let's see. Oh, the original title of this film I learned was License Revoked.
Yeah, that would have sucked.
That's so bad.
That's a really bad title.
It's such a bad title. You know why? Because if you just hear that title, not knowing it's a Bond movie,
right?
You don't know that it's License to Kill. You think that sounds like a Corey Haim movie to me.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
License revoked. Damn. Now I gotta steal my dad's car. All right. All right. So, let's talk about the movie, I guess. It opens with Sindel from Mortal Kombat getting spanked on the rear by some kind of weird device. I didn't know what the fuck was going on, but whatever. Then we get a big cold open, big action sequence, which was pretty fun for the most part, and that we end up at Felix's wedding, and I'm like, great, Felix's wedding. I'm excited. Let's bring back John Terry, Jack's dad from Lost.
No, not this time.
No. But why? It was just 2 years ago. We did a whole reboot. We recast a lot of the characters.
I agree. I don't know what the story with that is. I do know that we've covered this Felix before, in that he was in Live and Let Die as Felix. Yeah.
Great. He's a former Felix. No one remembers it. No one popped for this. Not a single audience member sitting in that audience opening night at the new James Bond movie was like, oh my god, it's the Felix Leiter from...
First of all, that's not... There's no way that's not
I think it's
true.
Bullshit. I think nerds now are different than they were back then. They didn't have the internet back then. No one remembered from watching Live and Let Die that was Felix Leiter.
I don't know.
Ridiculous. All right, so it's some old guy getting married to a beautiful young woman. Priscilla Barnes, by the way, the replacement Chrissy from Three's Company. I don't know what fucking movie I'm watching anymore.
That was hilarious. When I saw her again, I was just like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
That's so weird. But,
also the three-nippled psychic from Mallrats.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I don't remember her in that.
That's
okay.
Priscilla Barnes. If you want to see Priscilla Barnes' boobs, watch Mallrats.
Let's see.
Yeah, all right. So, all right, then Gladys Knight kicks in with the song. That's lovely. I noticed Bond smoking a lot of cigarettes in this one. How about that?
Love it.
You love that. That's great to you.
It's James Bond. What do you want him to be fucking quit smoking too?
I don't remember Bond smoking a lot of cigarettes in previous movies.
Dude, Connery had a lit cigarette in his mouth all the time.
But it was it's 1989. We're still having a chain-smoking James Bond. I saw during the closing credits they had to put a Surgeon General warning.
Yeah, I saw that. That was fascinating.
Yeah.
I've never seen that in a movie. Or if I did, I never noticed. I think we were still fighting the morality of can we still depict... Well, we were way not even close to defeating that monster corporate,
But why haven't I don't even understand why he's a super spy. He's got to be really fit and shit.
You can still smoke and be fit.
In 1989, I feel like it's a weird thing to have your action hero smoking a cigarette.
I didn't feel that way.
Especially in something like this, which is like a fucking family movie.
I know, but not this one.
It still is.
This was one that kind of was. I think even at 11 when this came out was a little much for me.
But that's what's seeing it, man. Like you think like just because the new Daniel Craig movies are dark, like there's still 13-year-old kids going to see them.
No, of course, but I'm thinking of this movie in particular. I always remember License to Kill as being like a massive turning point when I was a kid. Like, wow.
Maybe that's why no one fucking saw it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it even struggled with some rating issues at the time. They trimmed some shit to make it, But
they should have trimmed more. They should have trimmed another 20 minutes.
No, everything in it's fine. The smoking in it is interesting though. I mean, I do not remember whatsoever, but I'm assuming Brosnan doesn't smoke at all.
I doubt it. Yeah. I mean, maybe cigars. That's what they should have switched to. Make him a cigar smoker. That's less weird.
They turned a corner in the whole smoking in movies. Well, not really in the 90s. I mean, they still smoke.
They really didn't until like 10 years ago.
Correct. So in 1989, for the fucking debonair martini swilling woman fucking cigarette smoking super spy, it's not going to change.
Okay,
but, anyway.
but there were like groups at the time, like anti-smoking groups that were like fighting this good fight for so many years.
That's true.
And like I used to see like ads like in magazines like there's so much cigarette smoking in Disney movies or something, and I'm thinking it was pussy. And now I look at this movie and I'm like, God, there is too much cigarette smoking in this movie.
It doesn't. I mean, it. Okay.
All right. Here's one reason I like this movie. As you know, I have multiple nautical tattoos at this point in my life, and it's a very nautical James Bond film. Now
it is. Which now I follow you because I didn't think you liked a lot of that sort of underwater shit.
I don't like underwater stuff. I tuned out the second they went underwater, but a lot of it is above ground. Like, you know, there's a shark attack, which is pretty fun. You know,
True. Yeah.
And at one point, Bond almost gets stabbed by a swordfish. I enjoyed that moment.
I love that scene, the bar scene. Yeah.
So, all right, what happens? Oh, so this is the big turning point in the movie, basically. The what do you call it? The inciting incident.
Sure.
So Felix, well, we think he's murdered at first, but the movie is too pussy to actually go through with it. Like any Bond fan, oh no. We don't get more classic Felix Leiter appearances in further movies?
Well, it is a strange choice because, I mean, they set it up perfectly to have him die. I mean,
Just kill the
Davi
motherfucker. Like, I don't know. I don't get why Bond would be so broken up by Felix Leiter's new fiance dying. Like, who cares?
I mean, it's, you know, he's been a character in the movies since the beginning, and they're clearly friends. He's his American counterpart. It makes sense to me. What doesn't make sense is that they lower him into a shark pit, and presumably shark eats his leg off, and then they return him, lay him on the couch, and he doesn't bleed out. He leaves, he's still alive, and then they presumably rape his wife.
Yeah, I assumed that too, and I just chose not to think about it.
I didn't either.
Fuck this movie for that.
I was like, I hope they just killed her. But
Benicio del Toro definitely raped her.
Because he says, you know,
yeah,
we're going to show her a nice honeymoon.
Oh, by the way, his best line delivery in the entire movie.
Yeah,
honeymoon. At that moment, I was like,
that's a star.
I smell MVP.
You know what I didn't remember? He's not in this movie nearly as much as I thought he was.
I didn't remember him in it at all, so it was exciting for me.
Have you seen this one quantifiably as much as you?
I think this is the one I've seen the very least of all James Bond movies.
Wow. So you've seen...
I think I watched this purely out of obligation. I wasn't even sure if I saw the whole thing.
So, okay, and The Living Daylights you had seen more than one?
I'd seen that one a couple times as a kid. Yeah, that was my Dalton Bond. Except now, like, I watch him and License to Kill is much better.
It is. I agree. Yeah. Letterboxd people do not.
No, they're wrong, though. So, next up.
So they maim Felix. They kill Felix's...
Here's what they should have done. You're developing this new continuity with the previous movie. Use it. Okay? You've got a new Bond. Use that. You don't need to be beholden to movies from 15, 20 years ago, bringing back old Felix Leiters and shit, and so what they should have done is have it be Bond's wife, but they didn't want to do that because they felt like they already did it in On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
And they brought it up, though.
And they did the follow-up in Diamonds Are Forever for like 5 minutes. But like...
Movie.
No, I know they reference it in this movie too. But they shouldn't. They should pretend it never fucking happened. And what they should do is at the beginning of this movie, bring the stupid, terrible actress blonde girl from the last movie back and kill her in the opening sequence. Have it be Bond's wedding, and then at Bond's honeymoon, Benicio del Toro murders his wife. All right? And then, instead of blowing off Bond's amazing revenge in 5 minutes at the beginning of Diamonds Are Forever, devote this entire movie to it.
Yeah. Interesting. interesting idea. I will give you that.
Much more compelling?
Well, here's the thing. I thought about this myself when I was watching this movie, is that they didn't do anything like that you're describing until Daniel Craig, when it was a separate, self-contained, full circle story. So they just continued, and it's a little disappointing.
But they're referencing shit all the time. Why can't, all you'd have to do is bring back this one actress for the beginning of the movie.
I'm just trying to say that it's the continuance of what they've always done. Is one movie's over and the next one starts anew.
But how do you explain Diamonds Are Forever, which acknowledges the end of On Her Majesty's Secret Service? I think it's okay when something massive like that happens to go into it.
Right. Well, they do it again in For Your Eyes Only at the very beginning when he visits his wife's grave. Roger Moore visits his wife's grave, and then Blofeld tries to kill him. And I mean, so
I think they fucked. The fuck up was not doing a reboot with Dalton. The first Dalton movie, Living Daylights, should have been a reboot, and then you bring back the Money Penny and and John Terry as Felix Leiter and the blonde girl to get killed, and then you introduce fucking better Bond girls in this movie.
I don't disagree that it should have been a reboot, but I think that falls completely in the category of what we said at the very beginning of this show, which is that they were not there yet. They did not have the guts to do that.
Why it took them 30 years?
Yeah. It took them
40 years.
20 more years to do that after Dalton, to do that.
The Broccolis, I think, are the worst movie producers of all time. They are in terms of guiding franchises, there is no one fucking worse than the Broccoli family.
A lot of hot takes tonight, folks. A lot of hot takes.
All right.
I'm not a lawyer for the Broccolis, but I think they've done a pretty good job. I mean,
they've botched every opportunity. Even Daniel Craig to some degree. Everyone liked Casino Royale and Skyfall, and no one liked any of the other ones.
Oh. Okay.
And now No Time to Die came out. I don't even hear anyone talking about it. I don't think anyone gives a shit.
It has an impact when you watch it.
Listen, I'm spoiled about what happened, and I know something massive happens at the end of that movie. A huge thing in the James Bond franchise. And nobody's talking about it.
Yeah. I know. Well.
All right.
Anyway, I think where your head is at for this is right. I just don't. I would have never seen that happening back then. That's all. They didn't look at it like that. You know that. They went right from Connery to Moore to Lazenby.
They considered it. They considered making the Dalton one a reboot.
You're right. So that gives your argument validation, but I just don't think. I mean, it's not at all surprising to me they didn't go through with it, and they still didn't go through with it when they had another opportunity to do so.
And then when they finally did go through with it, they fucked it up.
No, I don't think they did.
All right. Bond is now a rogue agent. He runs off on his own. He tells, M is like, hey, go to Thailand or something. And he's like, no, I'm going to hunt Felix Leiter's killers.
Yeah, I actually thought that was a good sequence because it was the first time that I think, I could be wrong, where you see Bond go to an MI6 hideout and sort of be threatened by his own security guards and M, you know what I mean?
It sort of is like the Bond's version of the moment in Winter Soldier when he jumps out of the elevator or whatever.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. He could just say, he really could just say okay, fine. But I like the line when he says, then you have my resignation, and M is like, this isn't a country club. You can't just resign. In other words, what do you think? You're just you can't, it doesn't work that way. So he's just like, all right, well, fuck it. I guess I got to escape. Yeah. And they try to shoot him from a tower. I mean, I thought that was pretty extreme.
Well, M did stop him. But he didn't stop him because it was Bond. He said there's a lot of people around. That's kind of funny.
I love that line because there's nobody around. They're in a compound.
Do you think that's M just not wanting to shoot Bond? That's kind of a sweet moment, actually.
I think it might be because he learns pretty quickly that Moneypenny is giving Bond like help and Q, and he doesn't do anything about it. I mean, he does send the one agent later with the Chinese to
the Oriental.
Try to get him back. But anyway, it's the instigating factors. The whole movie's a revenge film, and I'm okay with that. I'm all right with that.
But it's revenge on he's seeking revenge for his friend's new bride. Like, it's
for Felix too. For Felix,
well, Felix is fine as far as I know.
It's the leg.
All right, so the bad guys kill Sharky.
That was sad. That was an unnecessary death.
I agree. I think Sharky should have been introduced as the replacement Felix Leiter. I think in 5 minutes of screen time, Sharky is already a more compelling best friend for James Bond and is great. And also, he's a shark expert, and his name is Sharky.
This is all accurate and true, proven. And the enemy of his enemy is his enemy.
Yeah. I had a friend named Sharky once. I just remembered that. He had a backyard barbecue once, and my band played at it.
There are so many things in that I need to question. Oh, where'd you meet Sharky? The fucking American Legion?
I think a different show. We had played a show at a library.
What band is this? What are you talking about?
I was in a band in college called the Doldrums. And
okay.
And we had played at a library, and I think Sharky might have been there and liked us, so he invited us to play at his backyard barbecue.
All right.
Yeah.
Sharky, I want to know why they called him that.
I actually don't know. I can't answer that question for you. I was introduced to him as Sharky, and I never knew him as anything else.
I get it.
Yeah.
I just feel bad for Sharky because he's a fucking boat salesman. Or he's like, takes people on fishing expeditions, and he befriends Bond, and he helps him in some very dangerous situations, and then they fucking murder him. And it's like, I did not remember that, and I've seen this movie several times. I did not remember he died. At all. I was like, wow. Like, this movie, I gotta say.
It's racist. It's racist to kill Sharky and not Leiter. Although Leiter's black now.
That's right. That's the thing about this movie, though, that I like about it, and I know that it was too much for some people at the time, but, it was just that it's pretty fucking brutal, and it never went back to that until Craig. I mean, certainly Brosnan lightened everything, not just the portrayal of the character, but nobody is getting fucking fed to sharks and their heads blown up and shot to death. And I mean,
he also lightened it in that there's not a lot of black people until the fourth one when Halle Berry shows up.
I thought you were going to say they also lightened it because of Leiter.
Well, no, I don't know. Is he in the Brosnan ones?
They made him lighter in this movie by taking away his leg. I think Brosnan's movies take him out totally.
Maybe that's why I'm not familiar with him. Because those are the Bond movies I grew up on.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's what you would have grown up on. Yeah.
Anyway. Right. So there's a big fight in a bar, at which point I'm like, am I watching a James Bond movie? What is going on?
I think what's going on here, honestly, in this movie is I think this movie is trying to, again, stay with what's happening in action movies, period.
So what is this, Roadhouse?
I think it's a little bit of Lethal Weapon. I think it's a little bit of Die Hard. They're trying to get action sequences that are just more like dust-ups,
It's sort of like Beverly Hills Cop. They love a little dust-up in a bar.
And it's sort of like people were saying, I remember when Casino Royale, some people were saying it was too much like a Bourne movie, where it's like,
Well, that's obviously what they were going for.
Yeah, and I think in this movie they're just trying to be like, all right, we can do a fucking fist fight for Bond and shit like that. But I think it works because it's still got Dalton, and we were also introduced to Carrie Lowell in this sequence.
Yeah, that saves the sequence. Carrie Lowell's introduced. My note here, I just wrote the word drool with about 17 O's.
I mean, she's a remarkable person.
She's blonde here too, so I didn't recognize her at first.
Blonde?
When we first meet Carrie Lowell, she's blonde.
No, she's not. She's a brunette. She's just wearing a wig.
No, but I know, but she's wearing a blonde wig.
It's not a blonde wig. It's fucking brown. Get your eyes checked.
What are you talking? But she has two different hair colors in the movie. Doesn't she change hair colors at one point?
I
believe when we first meet her, she's blonde, and then she takes off the blonde wig to reveal that she's like, because I remember thinking she was hot, and then she took off the wig, and I was like, oh, you're hotter somehow.
Well, no, I don't believe that's correct, but I mean, she's a brunette who then, when she is Bond's quote executive secretary, he tells her to buy some clothes and look the part, and she comes back with her hair cut.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Why don't you fuck off?
No, I'm kind of the Bond nerd here, so yeah. I did kind of like that. There was a little bit of pushback in this movie too, like from her. She's kind of like, when he says that, like in an older Bond movie, like when he calls her his secretary, she's kind of like, she's right away offended, and then she like tells him, first of all, it's Ms. Kennedy.
He is overstepping his bounds here. It reminds me of when Kanye, after he married Kim Kardashian, went through her whole closet and threw out what he didn't like.
I didn't know he did that.
Yeah, he did it on the show. Like, it wasn't a secret.
Poor Kim.
Yeah. Well, she's out of there now. And so is he. I don't know who got the worst in that.
I was kidding. For any of them. Anyway,
what were we talking about? Oh, yeah. Well, there's a lot of that in this movie. When they first hook up on that boat, they have a weird exchange where they kiss or something, and then she goes, "Aren't you?" Or like it's before they kiss, and she goes, "Aren't you going to ask permission to kiss me or something?" Right? And then
you should ask me first, then ask me, or something like that. It's some exchange.
So it's like this weird thing about like consent,
boundaries, and consent. Yeah. You're right.
Except then they fuck right after that. Like, we get the boundaries and consent leading up to the kiss, and then we just like show them like.
It's a Bond movie. You gotta fuck, because we haven't had any fucking so far, and we're like 45 minutes into this movie, and Bond get laid. I mean, we've gone from the 4 quota Connery shag count and the more similar one.
Well, he should always have around that one girl from like. Remember that girl he dated in From Russia with Love or something? Goldfinger. She like came back for like a second. He should always have her as a backup.
The Dr. No one From Russia girl.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Burnett. Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, but I really do think you were talking about smoking earlier in this, and I really think that this is a product of the 80s too, and the AIDS epidemic and all that. And I think
we were really interested in condoms.
And I really think they were cutting back on. I mean this. I really think it's noticeable that they cut back on Bond's promiscuity. I mean, that's clearly
easily, yeah. Which is why I cut down on cigarette use too.
You should join an anti-smoking lobby.
I have something to say about condoms, if I may. Can I go on a tangent about condoms?
That's what this episode's mainly been. Go ahead.
I've noticed that when you go to a girl's house and you're going to have sex and it's not expected, like say you go to a girl's house, you don't have condoms, and then it's like you're going to have sex so she gets the condom. You know what I'm talking about? You've been in this situation?
Yeah, I zoned out for a second.
When you're at a girl's house about to fuck, and and it's the girl, she's the one to get the condom, okay?
Do you know that you're going to be having sex?
You don't know. So that's why you didn't bring condoms. So you're there, and it's her job to get condoms.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
All right. I've noticed that more often than not,
they have them.
A, they have them always, 100% of the time. But B, they'll hand you a Magnum Trojan. That, every time I am at a girl's house and they hand me a condom, the first one they hand me is a Magnum-sized Trojan. And I'll say that does fit my dick. But I think it's a little presumptuous.
Yeah, you're worried that, maybe some other guy's going over there.
I don't care. I don't care about that at all. I just think women shouldn't assume that any random sexual partner that comes over their house is going to have a Magnum-sized cock.
But have you ever put on a condom that was clearly too small?
No. Have you?
it's not fun.
I bet that's a nightmare.
It doesn't work. Yeah.
Did you try to do it? Like cinch it up somehow?
It didn't happen.
Yeah. Oh, so you just didn't have sex?
I'm not going into the further details of
when
the.
When was this? How old were you when this happened?
I'm not going
last year?
I'm not going into the further details of the story.
Okay.
But you know, tiny condoms or mediums. I shouldn't put people down, men down of tiny whatever. But you know, Magnum is fine.
Those blue lubricated Trojans, they fit everybody. Dudes with huge dicks, it'll fit them. Just get those. Don't hand me a Magnum. So presumptuous.
Yeah, but it's helpful to me.
All right. Anyway.
Stupid.
Let's talk about some of the villains. We got Robert Davi. He's all pockmarked, looking like Noriega. He's pretty cool.
Die Hard carryover, another one.
Yeah, that's right. He's in a lot of stuff. What else has Robert Davi been in?
Oh, Jesus, dude. Fucking, I have to look him up. But I mean,
there's like big movies from this era that like are movies I love. He's in Predator 2, right? I think he's like the chief in Predator 2.
You are correct. Yeah. Obviously, he's in Die Hard. His partner in Die Hard.
Action Jackson, baby.
Okay, hear me out. Remember in Die Hard, he's the FBI agent who's in the chopper who's going to like take the building from the...
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you remember his partner in that? They're Johnson and Johnson, and one's black and one's white.
No, I didn't remember that.
And the black one is the DEA agent in License to Kill, who's tells Bond, "Look, man, that's enough. You're out of control." In the beginning, that's him. So there's
if there's one guy out there that can make connections between Bond and Die Hard, it's Henry Papali.
Michael Kamen scored both movies as well.
Really?
Which, by the way, the score in this movie throughout is extremely refreshing, I have to say. Especially after Living Daylights. Like, Michael Kamen is a very good movie composer. And
I didn't notice. I mean, I didn't notice it bad, and I did in Living Daylights, so that's good.
I mean, in some of the action sequences, you can definitely hear some of those Michael Kamen Die Hard-esque isms going on. I think he's very good, and I really like the score to this movie a lot. Anyway,
going back to the Robert Davi character, I just want to say very quickly, MVP contender has to be his pet lizard with a diamond necklace.
I understand that. I understand that. Yeah. It's an iguana. Yeah. Yeah.
Sure. Well, that's in the lizard family, isn't it?
Yes.
Also, Wayne Newton is introduced as a Mexican man.
That's an homage to a Roger Moore movie. If I ever saw one, we have to throw Wayne Newton in there.
No, this was just the Broccolis being their terrible producing selves. Wayne Newton apparently wrote a letter to the Broccolis saying, "I love the James Bond movies. Can I have a cameo in one?" And they were like, "I'll do you one better, Wayne Newton. You're the villain."
Here's what the letter should have said. Dear Wayne Newton.
No.
We received this letter on July 1st, 1989. Clearly you meant to postmark it July 1st, 1971, when we would have put you in a movie with Sean Connery and it would have been more fitting.
They should have written, "Dear Wayne Newton, try Mars Attacks. Love the Broccolis."
Dear Wayne Newton,
I did kind of like. Sorry. Go ahead. What's your joke?
Dear Wayne Newton, it's 1983. John Landis is looking for a replacement for his helicopter sequence.
Oh, poor bastard. Fucking Wayne Newton. I did like the scene where he thinks he's gonna fuck Carrie Lowell. It's very funny.
You know what's nice about that scene? I think even though, because the movie has a pretty dark fucking dour tone, they could have easily made that scene like really, really more uncomfortable than it already is. And like,
I think years ago they would have had her fuck him.
Well, they could have made him like Milton Crest, whose character's head explodes, who basically has a really creepy scene with Lupe.
The worst special effect I've ever seen in a James Bond movie.
They trimmed that shit too. I heard it was way like bloodier and shit, but
it looks like something out of a fucking Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
It really does, but it's still awful.
I wonder if they were going for that. That was popular at the time. They love to copy popular things.
They were ticking every box here.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm glad they didn't go with, like, Wayne Newton's character, like, trying to, like, trap her in the room. And instead, when she gets up with the gun, he's just like,
ugh!
Bless your heart. You know, it's like, that's it. And it ceases to be, like, going into zones where, you know, because when Lupe gets stuck in the room with Milton Crest, that's an uncomfortable sequence, and they show her that she's whipped by Robert Davi and
that's
God.
right, they show those little wounds on her lower back. Yeah,
I mean, this is really, I gotta tell you, I guess it was PG-13, but
I don't know. It doesn't strike me as terribly bad for now, but I can see at the time this being like too much for some. It's definitely going in a different direction than a lot of blockbusters were during this period. I
mean, there's some gross deaths in this movie. I mean, you get 2 shark attacks, a head explosion.
They shouldn't be comparing Bond to Lethal Weapon and Die Hard. They should be comparing it to like Batman. Like, they should be thinking of James Bond as like a superhero.
Yeah.
Right.
I know, you're right, but I don't know, they went that direction. I don't know why.
Yeah. All right, so there's a pretty cool fight at the end with Carrie Lowell fighting Benicio del Toro for a second. I was kind of into, and then and Bond comes in and it becomes like a 3-way fight, which ends with Benicio basically getting suplexed into a meat grinder.
Suplexed, yeah. That's a great. What I did like the way that the movie, plot-wise, has Benicio see Bond in the bar, and then the plot pulls it off that they are never in the same room again. Because the whole movie, Davi thinks Bond is like a hitman for hire. He doesn't know who he really is, and the only one who does is Benicio del Toro, but he's never in the same room with him. So then in the climactic scene when they're showing the Asians the drug base. Yeah, I mean, before I even say it, I know he's going to say it.
It's so ridiculous.
With that nerdy Truman Lodge character, who's a great weasel, the accountant character, and Benicio recognizes him. I love that. In like he like comes up behind him with the gun, and it's just like, oh boy, like that. I think that's really well done. And I also like the whole.
Benicio's already so good.
He really is, and he barely has like.
No, but he's like on another level from everybody else, and
absolutely. But that's just a great sequence, and I like the fact that Davi clearly, as a character, reveres him as a loyal member of his, group, to the point where all Benicio says is, "I know him. He's an informant," and that's it. Like Davi's instantly is like, "All right, you're dead then."
He says he's a rogue agent. He says those words exactly.
Oh, he says?
Yeah.
Benicio says that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
Yeah.
You seem to be right about everything else. So Benicio del Toro gets ground up to beef, and there was a moment that I felt really needed a Bond quip here, where he's hanging on in the meat grinder, and Carrie Lowell helps him pull himself out of there, and Carrie Lowell goes, "Are you okay?" This is what he needed to say. Grade A. Right? Grade A, top sirloin.
Yeah. He was probably just worried she wouldn't turn off the conveyor belt.
Yeah, but she did. Everything's all right. And then, Bond uses his spy training to become a trick big rig driver. He drives on 2 wheels.
I think that sequence is quite excellent.
Really? It reminded me of the circus shit from Diamonds Are Forever.
I understand that. I remembered that I had this old memory from the trailer of License to Kill, and that being in the trailer with like the rocket going underneath, like side underneath it, but it's still pretty fucking cool. And I
did like that one hapless bastard that was helping the bad guys, and for like just because they asked him to on the street, and then he got blown up at the end. It was pretty good.
Yeah. I like that whole sequence, and chases, as we've discussed ad nauseum, can really be fucking boring. But I didn't think it was in this movie. I think that was a cool fucking chase.
I was a tad bored.
Yeah, I figured you would be, but I thought it was really good, and I like the way at the very end, Davies about to kill him with the machete, and Bond's like, don't you want to know why? And he just shows.
Yeah, he sort of outsmarts him in that moment, and and he's got a lighter, and he lights him on fire, and then the lighting of Robert Davi on fire lights the big rig truck on fire. And big explosion. Bond jumps off into the distance with Carrie Lowell. No problem.
But the lighter, what it says is he's revealing to Davi why he's doing all this, because the lighter says to James from Felix and Della.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, I did. I remember the lighter from the beginning of the movie. They give it to him. That you see that at the wedding. Right. And Priscilla Barnes has some absurd line like, "We love you, James."
By the way, she kisses him on the lips quite a bit for a very new bride.
You don't think that all of James Bond's friends' brides are trying to fuck him? Are you kidding me? Any one of them are going to shoot their shot if they get the opportunity.
She's got Felix Leiter in the next room. She doesn't give a shit. She's like, James, come into my honeymoon suite for a second.
This babe thought she was marrying John Terry. She turns around, all of a sudden he's aged 30 years.
Drunk 3 feet. Yeah. Some other good scenes though? I like the scenes in Davi's lair. I like Bond's casino scenes. I thought that those were cool.
Sure.
All that shit works. I like Carrie Lowell's comedic time. All the stuff in the hotel room with Q works.
Everything. That's all. Well, except for the Polaroid gun, but I just can take or leave any of the gadgets. I don't give a shit about the gadgets, but I do think that scene was fun.
That scene, and actually, with the gadgets, that scene isn't really there for the gadgets. That scene's there as an excuse to bring Q into the movie.
It's actually kind of a cool little character thing for Q to know that if he's close enough with Bond that as a rogue agent, Q will still find him. That's
why I love that. That's the reason I love that, because a lot of these characters, Q and M and Moneypenny and Leiter and all these people are always around, but who's really there for him? And it's a very cool thing to see. And let me just ask you this too, not to get it's not serious, but I'm just curious what you thought. So how everybody says how Craig brings sort of a pathos and a sadness to Bond. I personally think, even though the vehicles don't let him do this, I think Dalton brings that too. I think he acts like someone who would
I think that was the intention, and that was the opportunity they had, and they just fucking...
Right, but I just mean Dalton himself. I think he pulls that off. I think he looks like someone who would probably rather be doing something else. He's clearly not he's a tortured...
Yeah, he doesn't seem comfortable lying and cheating and stuff. And...
he's not
Bond was always sort of a conflicted hero, anti-hero or something.
Yeah, he's not he doesn't, when he goes into the casino, he doesn't seem to be really at leisure, enjoying his baccarat and blackjack. He just seems to be all business and kind of just he'd rather do something else. He even says in Living Daylights, he says if he wants my resignation, he'll have it. Something like that. I don't know. I think it's just a lot of. I just think Dalton's really, really good, and I'm sorry that this hit him at the wrong point in the franchise.
You got the wrong movies, man. I do think that Dalton had a good run as Bond in him, and he just didn't get to do it.
Yeah, and I think even if he would have come back for GoldenEye, it wouldn't have worked because the movies.
It would have tanked. First of all, no one would have given a shit. I mean, Timothy Dalton sort of became a joke. Unfortunately, I remember there's a scene in Buffy where there were these three villains that were like nerds, and they cut to them at one point, and they're like discussing who they like as Bond, and one of them is like Sean Connery, and the other one says Roger Moore, and then the third one, who's like the doofus of the group, says I like Timothy Dalton, and the other two guys both slap him, and that's the whole scene. It just cuts away, and like that's funny, but like. You know, it's kind of fucked up. Like that's sort of the reputation he found himself with through no fault of his own.
Right, and I think I have to say though, I think those days are over. I don't think anyone.
Yeah. I think now that there's the internet, enough people can get together and say Timothy Dalton is overrated, and then it becomes true. I mean, underrated.
Yeah. And I've always thought that. I've never changed my opinion on that. And I just think, but what I was going to say was, you're right, they would have tanked. But if he would have come back for GoldenEye, he would have been wrong for it. Those movies would have been wrong for him too.
Yeah, no. They'd have to redesign that entire movie around him.
They camped it up again. They took a quick foray in License to Kill. It tanked at the Office, and so they were like, nope, let's go back to square one.
But then they were convinced that camp was the way to go, because GoldenEye is a much better movie than these two Timothy Dalton movies.
I need to see GoldenEye again. My weakness for that is I think it's Brosnan's best outing as Bond, but I don't like. I way prefer Timothy Dalton, so I don't know. I'd be really interested when we get to Brosnan. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, we will probably in 2022.
So, because we can nail the Craigs down too. We'll do this. Yeah.
All right, bro. What do you give this one?
I love this movie, but it has flaws. But I'm giving it a 4.
Okay, I'll give it a 3.
Okay. All right.
Who's your MVP, Carrie Lowe?
I
forgot. By the way, Everett McGill showed up in this movie. I just wanted to point that out because it was weird to me.
Yeah. I mean, this movie's stacked. You know what? I'm actually going to give it. I'm going to give it to Robert Davi. I think he's a memorable Bond villain. I think of Bond villains, I would mention him in the conversations. He's fucking great.
All right, now my LVP.
Who's your MVP?
I thought long enough. My what?
MVP.
Oh, Carrie Lowe. Obviously, it's Carrie Lowe.
She would be my second choice.
Yeah. MVP in my heart. So LVP, I thought about it, and I decided for LVP I cannot think with my dick. All right, Talisa Soto from the Mortal Kombat films is very hot in this movie.
Yeah,
but is a really bad actress.
Oh, she's fine in this movie.
No, some of her line deliveries, I wanted to record on my phone or something because it was like, wow, that made it into a movie. That line delivery made it into a motion picture.
I was curious about her, where she was from, and so then of course I learned she's from fucking Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So she's doing an accent for this movie.
She's not. She's not what? She's not doing an accent. She's just a bad actor.
No, she is doing an accent. She speaks like you and me. She's from Brooklyn. She's not, so she's putting on this accent that's supposed to be like Colombian.
She's barely even doing that.
I'm just saying it's there, and so I think she cannot do an accent. But I mean, okay, you really didn't. Okay.
I thought she was really horrible. And once Carrie Lowell showed up halfway through, it only amplified how bad Talisa Soto is, because then there's that scene where Soto shows up and Lowell's jealous of her.
I like that sequence.
I loved that sequence.
But gets the best reaction in the movie when they start arguing and it just pans to Q rolling his eye.
You know what though? At that point in the movie, I wasn't sure who Bond was more serious about, Talisa Soto or Carrie Lowell.
I just remembered because I've seen it.
I wasn't sure, and so then I thought it was actually a cool move to have Q be the one to go he's doing his job, lol. Don't worry.
You're right. That is funny. He says that almost yeah, right. That's interesting.
Yeah. All right. So that's that movie.
Well, I didn't do my LVP.
Oh right. Who's yours?
Boy, I don't know. I liked a lot of people. I like Colonel Heller, the guy who plays Sanchez's double-crossing head of security, who you barely get a story about.
Colonel Heller. I don't recall that character.
Main guy with the beret who's always like his yes man, and then it turns out he's like going to double cross him with Terry.
There's a few good characters like that in the movie. I actually liked the one who was sort of like. Oh wait, maybe that was in The Living Daylights. Is sort of like that guy. There was like a white guy hanging around the bad guys in that movie. No, it was definitely this one because I remember him giving a tour to the Orientals.
Well, there's Truman Lodge, the accountant guy, the little squirmy.
I guess that's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
It must be.
I mean, I don't know. LVP. I mean, maybe. Fuck. Help me out. You know what? As funny as it is and as goofy as it is, I think if this movie did get rid of Wayne Newton, it might be a little nicer.
There you go. Wayne. How can you not come up with an LVP in this one? You got Wayne Newton, Talis Soto, you got fucking Felix Leiter for no reason.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, so Wayne Newton, it works in the TV sequence when we're watching him on television. It's funny, it actually, but then when we...
Yeah, because that's a cameo. You're looking at that and you're like, oh, look, Wayne Newton. But then he becomes a character, and you're like, Wayne Newton?
Not necessary. Yeah.
All right. So
we did it. The Dolphs.
What a fun Bond outing this week with Timothy Dalton. And more next year. In the meantime, hey, you can use some Patreon shit. Patreon.com/thefranchise. We got a lot going on over there. And also, leave a 5-star rating or review on iTunes. That really helps us. Any rating or review helps us. We got a nice 1-star review this week, which still helps us. So thanks to Leprosy Dog for piping back in with his second 1-star review for us. He really hates us. What does the review say, Henry?
The review is titled Wrong. And the content
what was
of
I
said
wrong about?
Well, the content of said review, I believe it's targeting both of us. On the Crow episode, sorry guys, you're wrong. No incorrect spelling, but that's okay. Sorry guys, you're wrong. Kurt was killed by Courtney, so you just have to live with it.
Okay.
1 star.
Now,
1 star.
I have to respond to this right now because it is very easy to live with the idea that like Courtney killed Kurt. Like that is an easy thing to live with because it's just a bullshit conspiracy theory in your fevered brain. What's actually difficult to live with, which I have been for most of my life, is that one of my favorite artists felt so sad that he couldn't live anymore and killed himself, which is what happened.
Agreed.
Yeah, you know, so maybe, sir, you need to live with it. You should live with that. Kurt killed himself. Live with it, buddy.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing to deal with. We went through it. We were. I remember when it happened.
Yeah.
But,
and you know what? You know what? Speaking of living through it, "Live Through This" by Hole, an incredible album by Courtney Love.
I don't know, man. You know, this guy obviously likes Alex Jones, and so there's stuff going on there.
I don't. He doesn't seem Alex Jonesy to me. That's too radical. He's more of a Shapiro.
Yes. So Leprosy Dog a year ago left us another 1 star. So hey,
what was that one about?
That just said 1 star. Okay, guys, no 5 stars.
Oh, right. So he hated us then, but then he thought about it and he was like, I still hate those guys, but now I got a reason to. Because they got to live with this.
He listened to the 120-minute episode of The Crow and that line that we said about.
Stood out to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he knows. He's a forensics investigator and you know, he saw that, you know, the bullet could not have come from Kurt.
No.
It was definitely his girlfriend who wasn't even there.
The threads in the carpet didn't match.
Yeah. All right. Henry, what a beautiful time that was.